Under the silver light of the moon, a lone warrior fights for his life. Explosions echo among the mountains as he leaps through the wreckage, his blue horns reflecting the fury of battle. But his enemy is a colossal monster, a white creature with red eyes, thirsty for blood. With quick and accurate blows, its claws tear the beast's flesh, but the fight is far from over. When the warrior finally defeats, the entire ground begins to shake. Others then emerge from the shadows. The nightmare is not over. 10 years later, a young man awakens from a strange dream. Your missing brother lives or died in that completely hostile land. As he tries to understand his own existence, harsh reality calls in, a cruel world where only the strong survive. But destiny keeps secrets, and your true journey has just begun. Suddenly, our boy wakes up, crying, screaming, calling his brother's name. That one over there is Larte, from the Nature faction. He wakes up in a ragged room, full of rats, and a straw bed. He's always had these kind of strange dreams, but he knows that his brother is living a good life. After all, he went to the Nature continent about 10 years ago. Then, he touches his head and sees that his horn is hurting a lot. He has some bumps on his horn. Unfortunately, our boy was born into an inferior species compared to his brother, who can become a divine host. Then suddenly a guy knocks on the door, knocking with tremendous force. And from there, he throws a plate of strange green food, shouting at him to eat quickly and get out, that there's a lot for him to do today. So, he takes those strange balls and starts putting them in his mouth, remembering that his brother told him to eat everything, eat as much as he can. This way, perhaps his body will wake up to the new changes. After all, that faction of nature survives and thrives on the core energy of nature. Although the nature faction only has a few that are still alive, they cannot let the only spark of prosperity go out completely. But suddenly the guy comes in and kicks him right in the face, shouting at him that he told him to eat quickly and leave. Larte just apologizes, as the guy leaves the room, saying that maybe the smell of nature will permeate his clothes. How much longer does he have to work with these bastards of nature? And he says that after Larte leaves, he has to dig some holes before the sun sets, and then choose the plantations. So Larte, out on the carnivore island, on the graphite plain, there he is, working like a convict. First, he has to dig the mine in the 3rd sector. Afterwards, he has to mine black ores, and then he has to take care of the crops on the plain again. He always does this type of work with a glow on his face, as if it were nothing. Every day, a complete routine every day. The only thing he has to do is accept his cruel fate. But Larte, poor thing, was only 15 years old and was already working like a convict. Then suddenly a rock hits his head, and there they are, kids screaming at him, saying he's a filthy hunter of the wild. It's better to work properly. After all, he eats a lot, so he has to work twice as hard. Larte apologizes and says he's going to work. The guys then run away, while saying that next time they will do worse to him. But suddenly, that kid hits his head on no one else, none other than the general. The general asks what they are doing there again. He no longer told them to study and not wander around. That location is off limits to children, but tell them to go to school quickly. If they catch them there again, things will stink for them. Then, the general comes to Larte and tells him to get this, a bag full of food. He says he got that one secretly from the grain store for him to eat. After all, he's working too hard, so he will be hungry after all that work. And in a few days, the waterway that leads to the continent of nature will be open, so maybe he can go there. Larte thanks him, while the general says he believes in him a lot, and maybe he can become a full divine host. Larte thinks about what his shiny horns would look like. He starts talking with his mouth full. Thank you, General. I will definitely become a completely divine host. The general already warns that he could choke to death if he keeps talking while eating. Then, you can finish eating. Even if that guy is the general of the carnivore faction, unlike him, he is a good person. And he is also determined to become an adult, like him, with a good heart. Then, night falls, while Larte is still working, while a carnivorous drunk watches him. That guy then starts saying he needs to clean the meeting room, and he can't go there in this completely drunk state. He watches Larte, while saying that he is also part of the faction of nobles, of carnivores. Why does he need to clean mere meeting rooms? Apparently he needs to do this because he has a low rating system. He observes Larte and asks if he has finished his work for today. The guy says yes. The guy just says he's going to give him the key to the meeting room so he can clean it immediately, and then bring the key back to him after he's finished cleaning. Larte apologizes because he is prohibited from entering that executive meeting room. The guy already tells him to stay away, because if he is disregarding his orders, things will get ugly for him. So, Larte, with no options, decides to clean the room. And the guy just says he better clean that room before those damn old men get into that room. In the meantime, he's going to sleep. Unfortunately, Larte is very tired. And he decides to finish it as quickly as possible. Then, he enters the room and finishes everything. Leaves that room completely in order, very well organized and clean. He thinks it's the first time he's been there, and it's the first time he's seen so many books. This is quite interesting. He sees a book that catches his attention. It's a book about the horn of the nature faction. Why is there a nature book in the carnivore's room? He is curious to know what this book says, but suddenly he hears several voices. Wow, those guys are already there, and he needs to hide. If he is caught, he will be punished. The punishment is nothing more and nothing less than working much harder. If he already works day, afternoon, and night, he will have to work early in the morning, and look at that, without any food, every day. He definitely can't let this happen to him. He needs to find a place to hide quickly. Then, one of the carnivores enters the room and notices a very different smell, but the smell comes from that potted plant. It smells like a high-class, very clean bar. It's been a long time since they've seen this place this clean. Who did that cleaning today? The guys already think it's that lower-class guy who's in charge of Larte. They decide to keep asking him to do this every day, but Larte knows that he's broken now, my son. He's going to have to do this every day for that guy, but he's still happy he didn't get caught. The leaders there begin to discuss when they will take care of that dirty boy from nature. They still aren't sure, since he hasn't become a divine host yet. If those horns don't grow back at that age, then he's definitely an inferior species. What a waste. What is he listening to now? Damn, he can't understand. While the guys keep saying that he is very different from the previous one, there's still a lot they don't know about that boy. One guy just tells them to keep the kids under control. They're just little brats. A guy starts saying that if they come into contact with the black ores, the poison would accumulate in their bodies. That's why they asked the nature boy to do all those dangerous things. The guy just says he's going to eat that. Another already says that they should. What is that? Someone else already thinks it will be good. Will it? But the other just says that that one is charming. This homemade liqueur. Then suddenly there it is. Nature's horn liquor. While the guy says that Larte, that bastard, he was very useful, wasn't he? Could that horn be his brother's horn? The guys start drinking that liquor and think everything is wonderful. The general thinks that Larte thinks he is a kind person, while the other says that this was the best thing he heard that year. The general begins to drink his liquid, still smiling. He knows that he is sure that he, not in his wildest dreams, thinks he is a villain. That 10 years ago, on that day, that his old brother Larte did not go to the continent of nature as promised. He was, in fact, offered as a sacrifice to the predators. Wow, that's a complete shock for our beloved protagonist. Now, he began to understand everything. If he got too close to that black ore that Larte often mines, then all of his intestines would eventually go numb and rot. Does he know this? And they keep saying that that's why they have that boy, while Larte watches everything. That general was afraid that his scent would penetrate him, and he always wore a glove when he got closer to him. And he knows how hard it is for him to act like he cares. He's only tolerating this because those bastards of nature have unlimited resistance. And, as if that weren't enough, they are very submissive in their lives, which makes them perfect slaves. Larte is grinding his teeth and listening to everything in silence. Although it was just things said while drinking, each of those words were like knives piercing his heart and entering deeper and deeper into his mind. Although it was a truth he didn't want to face, he was hearing everything. All those evil acts they committed, he carved them into the deepest parts of his soul for the 10 years he spent there, like a retard. And, as if that weren't enough, the unjust death of his brother. He will definitely now make everyone pay for everything they did to him and his brother. Then, the next day, another routine begins. A guy immediately gives a plate of food, saying that today will be a busy day. He's supposed to get up, eat, and leak quickly. Larte stuffs his mouth with food, while the guy opens the door and asks what? Is he already awake? Larte just says he's going to finish eating quickly and finish his work, but the guy observes, Larte's eyes are tremendously red today. Why is that, huh? But he finds it all disgusting. So he starts monitoring our dear boy while he is tending to the fields. Apparently there's something wrong with him. Could he be planning something before being offered as a sacrifice? He then calls Larte's name, saying that he doesn't seem to be doing very well today, and he brought him more food. He better get that food quickly. Larte now knows what that guy really is, but he thanks him for the food and eats it all. The general already thinks he was worried for nothing. Apparently, because of his hangover, the smell of nature seems more disgusting than usual, and he decides to leave early, while thinking that that kid is nothing more than a greedy pig of nature. While the cruel routine was passing as it approached, the day of Larte's journey to the continent of nature approached, and also the day of his maturity. But one thing was remarkable. He knew that this trip was not for nature. Then, one of the old men approaches the food store and starts observing everything. There seems to be little food there now, right? There are 600 kilos of food. Has it decreased that much? But he just thinks he must be wrong and closes the door. And look who was inside. Start eating more than anything so you can get stronger. He also stole a book from that executive office. Unfortunately, our boy can't read because he never learned to read, and he really needs to learn to read, even if he has to listen to the lessons secretly. So he starts hiding near a classroom and starts taking notes. He begins to realize that if a forager in the wild does not have horns when they fully mature, then they are considered failures, mere trash of inferior species, and cannot become adults. But they have some exceptions, that an inferior species eats several times more natural foods compared to usual. They may grow much later, but there is a very small chance of this happening. If an inferior individual tries to mature vigorously by consuming foods from nature, then, theoretically, this could lead to the death of that individual. His brother always said these things to him. Once he becomes an adult, he will become strong. In order to gain the strength to maintain his revenge, he must become an adult, no matter what. If this is a small chance to mature through excessive consumption, this is the only chance he has. He will eat more, much more than just excessive consumption, and thus achieve the success of becoming an adult. Failure just means dying, and he has no choice but that. When a being from the nature faction consumes much more than they should, then a desire of theirs would explode. It's like a guy was abusing his own body. He eats, but with a hunger that is not just for food, it is a hunger for revenge, my dear ones. He was about to explode, and it made him forget about any pain. Larte went through this and achieved a very small change through the efforts he made, which exceeded reasonable limits. That period of growth allowed him to become an adult. Unfortunately, it's over, and, on the day of the ceremony, to go to the continent of nature, it was one day closer. The carnivorous hosts are already gathered, saying that that boy, apparently, his horn has grown a little more. The guy just thinks he's trash and doesn't have good quality horns. The general thinks that he still serves as a sacrifice for predators, since it is important that their offerings have horns. Tomorrow is the expected day, a sacred day that completes the 10-year cycle. They better check that nothing goes wrong, and they have to prepare the venomous poison. The guy thinks they should prepare a whole barrel of poison, a super dense type of radiation, but they think Larte isn't like Larch, who was a full adult. They probably won't need that kind of thing for him, but it's best to prepare a barrel just in case. As our boy continues walking towards the ceremony, the guy thinks he's very quiet. He turns around and says that he is of the lowest species possible. He is sure that he would probably die by falling into the water or being suffocated by fog until he reached the continent of nature. This guy is confusing our protagonist with Flamengo, that's for sure. He just says that it would be impossible for him to cross the sea safely unless he is a full adult. He just tells our boy to tell everyone that he wanted to stay there and do slave work. It's not too late for him, but out of nowhere blood gushes from that guy's nose, and the general fights with him, saying that he is just talking nonsense. Larte is already an incredible adult. The guy stammers and says he's too weak to be an adult. How about they continue using him as a slave? The general kicks that guy right in the stomach, very hard, while Larty watches everything. The general keeps saying that Larty has worked hard and has become an adult and is leaving for the continent of nature, and he should congratulate him instead of saying stupid things like that. The general tells Larty to go and not mix with this riffraff. The general, still smiling, thinks that they don't need to worry about the adult escaped from the wild and can meet the requirements in an adult form. This is a very good thing for them, but unfortunately, they will not be able to obtain good quality horns. Now that is a waste, while saying that Larty is perfect. As soon as Larty left that village, with 3 of the executives, to complete their ceremony of traveling to the continent of nature, they walked a little and arrived at a hill with no return. That would be the perfect place to hold the water crossing ceremony, and they soon send Larty to the continent of nature, now wearing adult clothes. Larty thanks him and says it was all his fault. He showed his kindness as a general to him. The general, smiling, offers special food for that day. Larty thanks him, but unfortunately, because of his greed for nature's food, he suddenly ate that strange food and started chewing without a hint of suspicion. While the general thought that the animalistic instincts of the nature faction, everyone knows this, that the poisoned food would paralyze all bodily functions, and now he is dying to see the effects of that poisoned food. Suddenly, Larty's body begins to become paralyzed. His eyes are red, and he falls to the ground. There are the effects. It seems the reaction was even stronger than Larty's reaction. The guys start laughing, while the general thinks the effect was instantaneous, huh? How delicious, since he is much inferior to the others. The young man's pupils disappear as he lies on the floor. Apparently, his brother held on for a long time, but his brother quickly passed out without being able to hold on for even a minute. The guys think he's dead. Is it really? Since he was a very inferior species, but out of nowhere, his pupil starts to turn back into a yellow glow. The guys can't believe what's happening as he starts to get up screaming and veins popping out of his head. Why is he unconscious and still struggling, huh? The guy starts to analyze that situation and sees that that forage faction of nature is basically they have resistance against all types of poison. Everything that is happening there is basically because Larty has been in contact with the black ore for a long time, and now his body has developed resistance against the poisonous attributes of the ore. And now it triggered a fierce reaction in his organs, completely blocking the poison. But this organ recognized the nature energy as poisonous and blocked it as well. And the reason why his horns weren't able to grow is that he couldn't be an adult after going through the maturation process despite having excess natural food. That's the reason his horns didn't grow, and he is not capable of becoming a full-fledged adult. Because of this, the absorption function was blocked. But now, because of that food from nature, the poison is being concentrated, and all your bodily functions have been interrupted for a brief moment. This means that organ that had blocked all forms of poison and energy absorption stopped working instantly, and now it began to absorb all the energy of nature accumulated all this time. All that thick energy begins to penetrate his organ, and he begins to feel every part of his body breaking and twisting. And he begins to scream and struggle on the ground, and his horns begin to grow rapidly, becoming increasingly shiny, and he starts screaming, while the generals and the old men don't understand what is happening. He knows that those carnivore faction generals are afraid of him, or move to make some kind of sense. He then gets up and looks at the executives of the carnivore faction, and sees that they look like mere ants. He can feel the energy surging throughout his body and covering him. That's what his brother told him. That's an adult awakening, isn't it? An old man starts to say that he knew he could become an adult, while thinking that if he uses those fresh horns to make a liqueur, the taste will be exceptional. But then Larty starts his massage sequence and punches that old man right in the face, throwing him away with tremendous force, breaking several trees back there. The generals are open-mouthed along with the old man, as he remembers all the time he spent mining and working as if he were a slave, only to die and have his horns turned into liquor. About the light of that red moon on that mountain, he says he doesn't have time to explain anything to anyone, so everyone there goes to hell with him. We know that instinct was recorded in the gene. The carnivores are completely terrified by the state of Larty now, and for the 3 of them fighting against him now, it's as if there were 3 stray dogs fighting a natural nocturnal predator on a dark night, in complete pitch blackness. He has never seen that gentle bastard from the Hayuan tribe like this, completely crazy. But is it because he remembers that story told generations and generations ago by the ancestors, that when they were young, the carnivore tribe was completely ruled by the Hayuan tribe, and it completely dominated the carnivore tribe. He now understands the power of an adult. Despite their innate strength, they were gentle and kind. Unfortunately, they fell victim to the cunning schemes of the carnivore tribes, and their numbers were increasingly dwindling until almost their extinction. But when anger overcame their gentle temperaments, like a mass of iron is wrapped in velvety fabric, a desire for revenge filled their hearts, poisoning those completely gentle beings, and revenge was all that was left, burning as if it would swallow them all. But still, they think they can win. After all, that bastard never learned to fight. The guys are already in a fighting position, but that alone won't be enough. A guy tries to dodge the blow, but Larte punches that guy right in the face. He doesn't stop there. He throws another left punch and a headbutt right in the middle of his forehead. The guy is starting to get all broken. While the old man calls our boy a bastard and a piece of shit, Larte just removes one of his hands and holds it around the other's neck, while he smashes the other's head on the ground. Wow, what strength. The guy still continues to call our boy a useless piece of trash. Larte just takes a look, while that guy thinks he will be able to take Larte's arm off first, using all the strength in his body. But unfortunately, that guy's body weight is nothing to Larte now. He still has his arm raised, and apparently it's not breaking. Larte then raises his arm up and drops it down with great force, smashing that guy's face on the ground with tremendous impact. You're crazy. Now the guy kicked. He almost died from that impact. If it weren't for some arms on the ground, he would have already gone to the grave. He continues cursing Larte and manages to free himself. He gets up, wipes his face, and says that Brad is very strong. He better do his best, otherwise he might die there. Then, he goes up, using his claws, but Larte defends himself and uses his claws too. The blows are very strong, and that guy comes out bouncing, but he comes back, preparing his knee to hit Larte's head. But Larte manages to defend himself, and that guy's blows are nothing on his body now. He, completely blinded by hatred, just defends himself. After the guy stops and watches Larte, he only sees the shadow of a kick coming towards her head and crushing her to the ground. Their fate was already sealed, my dear ones, being completely massacred and having their heads stuck in the ground, as if they were ostriches. But Larte didn't stop there. He kept banging their heads on the ground and increasingly puffing hot air from his mouth. A monster was created. That guy just thinks he needs to get out of there immediately. Amidst the bamboo, he tries to run, but Larte walks towards him, and suddenly, under the moonlight, there he is, hunting his victim. He holds that old man's neck, while the old man starts coughing. How? Like this kid? He knows for sure that this kid had never learned specialized martial arts from the Haiyan tribe. He just defeated them, just with his brute strength. But they trained all these years for nothing. The ancestors really were right. They would have to do everything to extinguish that Haiyan tribe. That power will bring great disasters to the entire carnivore tribe. Larte starts telling that old man to tell him everything he did to Larte that day. He's supposed to tell him everything, but the old man starts coughing, stammering. He says that Larte went to the Haiyan continent. Our boy doesn't believe this and punches him right in the face, but still holds his neck so he doesn't fall too far. And he asks once again, tell me the truth. Could it be that the Haiyuan tribe is nothing more than a joke? The guy starts saying that everyone living on the Haiyan continent is living happily. Larte only says that he saw the liquor he prepared with his horn. How could they do this, as they worked for them day and night? How dare they do this? One guy keeps shouting, telling Larte to hear him before tearing him apart. While the two are there trying to escape, one is unconscious. The guy just asks him to release the poisonous solution before they notice. Apparently, this will only make the situation worse. So, the guy takes the poisonous solution. Unfortunately, it has never been used for so many years. It's all rusty and doesn't want to fire anything. Nobody there maintained those devices because they thought they would never use them. One guy just says he has to rip the lid off and throw it at him, but the vice general is going to die. One guy just thinks this is the only chance they have, while Larte is still massacring him there. The vice general tells them to stop. If they throw that liquid there, he will be poisoned with it, but the general only says that they need to do that to get out of there alive. And he takes the liquid and throws it over them both. Both are poisoned. That liquid is tremendously corrosive, and they start screaming. And the general only thinks that this is stronger than Haiyuan's poison. They never thought they needed to use a poisonous solution on an inferior species like him. Larte has his face completely eaten away. They take some pieces of bamboo and say they are going to use these pieces of stick to push him off the cliff. But before that, someone else wants to take one of his horns first, and then prepare some liquor. The general warns him, is he serious? They think how long Larte will be paralyzed. They recover much faster than the other, and it will get very dangerous if he goes into a state of rage. While Larte is paralyzed, they walk towards him. As he watches everything, he thinks that his body is completely stiff, and he can't move just one finger, and now his consciousness is completely fading. Then, suddenly, the guys stab him, push him towards the bottom of that cliff. A guy looking down says that when the moon is up, the predators will smell it and come after him, and that will be the end of that dark place. That cliff is called the Cliff of No Return after all. He keeps falling and bouncing off several rocks as he falls, and suddenly he reaches the bottom, still remembering his brother. The last sentence he heard from his brother was that he would come to the Haiyan continent someday. Then, in the red moonlight, he sees some beings growling at him. Those monsters take him by the hand and start squeezing, and he starts spouting blood. The monsters start to tighten even more. Then, that monster throws him into the wall with tremendous force. The shock was so great that the mark of his body was left on the wall. Damn. The monsters begin to growl, thirsty for blood but also wanting to play with food. One of them throws a punch, but apparently doesn't catch Larte. Lightning fell from the heavens. Apparently another strange being came out and defended our beloved Larte from all those horrible animals. He grabbed our boy extremely quickly and got out of there, wearing a completely different metallic outfit. That guy's name is Teaser from the Lightning Tribe. Creation, the ability to create martial arts. Execution, ability to perform created martial arts. Well stolen. The guy creates and executes. It's the real beast. Hundreds of years ago, the day of change finally began. On Jinak Mountain, the sacred land of the god tribes, an ancient statue on top of the mountain was completely dyed black, and all the continents were completely strange. Birds flew towards nothingness, earthquakes, mountains, floods everywhere, fires raging all over the cities, complete chaos. All the continents of the god tribe turned upside down, and look, from the cracks conquerors emerged. Predators that crawled from the depths of the earth, and all the continents were conquered by the predators. In just 3 days, in a completely different location on Beto, a small island in the east of the Carnivore Island, there they are. Our protagonist is that strange guy entering a cave. He observes a young man who appears to be in critical condition, and for now he has taken him to a deserted island, far from predators. But he realizes that his organs have suffered multiple damage. This is worse than expected, and his heartbeat is getting weaker and weaker. He then attempts electric resuscitation and begins to launch several shocks into his body. Unfortunately, there is no other way. He needs to endure this pain. He continues to throw shocks into Lardy's body, and Lardy begins to scream several times in a row, and after a while, everything stops. And it seems that Larte is returning to her mental state, but now in a completely different way. Apparently, this guy is in the lowest layer. Those layers are inferior, alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. These are the last. The middle is zeta, eta, theta, and the penultimate is sigma, and the last one is omega. His body did not even reach the lower alpha level, and yet he absorbed all the high current. With only a normal amount of recovery powers, the body would not be able to support as much electricity, just as they predicted. That child is beyond all reason and understanding. So suddenly he hears someone telling him to wake up. Larte, wake up, Larte Cord. Everyone is waiting for him. Then a light blinds his vision, and he begins to look down to see several people with horns, the leader of all divine tribes. Then he opens his eyes and wonders where he is. He goes out and meets that being. So Larte, have you woke up? That guy knows his name, and it was he who saved him. But the guy already says he goes straight to the point. They have only 11 days. During that time, he will be teaching martial arts to him. Unfortunately, this may seem extremely sudden and hard to understand, but he says no. He already expected this, for something that could end the real hell on Earth that his life has been day after day. He waited and needed to go to the continent Haiyan. He please ask him to teach all the martial arts he needs to know. Prostrate on the floor. The guy takes his shoulder and tells him to call him Teaser. It is for him to make sure to remember everything he has gone through, and so even more. He thanks and says he will remember these words. He then asks Larte to close his eyes, and he closes, and begins to observe inside himself. Look deep inside, in the bottom of it, to concentrate all your energies and senses in the interior Haiyan energy. And now, expand all your senses and feel the Haiyan energy that he consumed one by one. Extend all your senses at once, and look at Haiyan energy that he consumed to the end, and spread all over his body, and slowly pour that energy out of his body. That one is basically a warm-up. That's when you concentrate high-end energy into a single point in the body and then release, taking the materialized energy to use it as it wants. This ability is called capture skill. He then asks our boy to open his eyes as he says this is the way they activate skills. It is different from each person. For him, from the lightning tribe, and for him, from the high-end tribe. But yet it is only different because you use the high-end energy and it uses small electric waves, but the principles are basically the same. His first step is to understand this principle. He just thinks it will be much faster to show him how it works. He then steps in the water and says that it is just a heating, and then takes his foot off the water and passes the floor, and the whole floor where his foot is melted, and he just says that this is called to capture. Our boy's eyes shine. That right there is the first step. It is the principle, the main thing, behind all martial arts. The guy manages to stay still in the air. What he felt when he saw this was exciting, intriguing, inspiring, and fun. He didn't know there was such an incredible world out here, and now he's very excited and can't help but learn everything he saw. The sensation, the feeling is very good. The guy says that in 11 days, he will go through 5 of those days, mastering these sensations. Most people can't overcome this feeling even after 5 months, so he thinks 5 days won't be enough time. But since they are in a hurry, he doesn't have much time left. Suddenly, a snap in your mind. He remembers the most talented singer on all continents, Parma, the emperor of music. Parma did not sing for the first 100 years of his life. He unfortunately hadn't heard. Since he couldn't hear, he didn't even know what sound was. But on the day he turned 100, he gained ears. So he started listening to everyone and everything, all the sounds in that world, and in just 2 days, he combined all the sounds in the world to create the perfect harmony. Teaser's demo appears with Parma's ears for Larte, opening an exciting new chapter in his life. Parma then tries to repeat the teachings, while the guy thinks that there was no need to learn anything, just to listen and observe. Larte already knew what to do, and he just started imitating what he did. As soon as he saw the demonstration, he knew what to do. That guy can't believe that it was true then. Look, our protagonist started to float just by looking at it. There really is a divine tribe, like the S. Karaka level execution, that Hayuan tribe, execution, S, ability to execute created martial arts. The first day of training was completed, and during the night, while our boy slept, there he was, extremely worried, still soaking up every drop of rain. He then went to talk to the master of his tribe. The guy, very embarrassed, asked him if everyone expected to believe that. Complete blasphemy. He expects everyone to believe that that kid is the savior prophesied in the sacred scriptures. He is just a child from the Haiyan tribe. This is complete nonsense. Wines must be crazy. That is the lightning tribe's saddle. He also has the same skills as Execution A, and he starts asking how that guy can say things like that. This is an insult to the greatness of the lightning tribe and its rich history. The guy starts to grit his teeth and starts shouting louder that from today onwards, the lightning tribe will cut all ties with Willis and also the sacred tribe, and he, Teaser, has thrown the name of the lightning tribe into the mud. It is unforgivable to accept such heresy. Then he will naturally be excommunicated from the tribe, completely excluded. He just patiently says he has no choice. He will move forward, believing Wiles's prophecy. The guy, still yelling, tells him to remember that excommunicated tribesmen are no longer considered allies, and he will never be able to set foot there on that lightning continent again. And when they meet again, he will be like an enemy, and he will tear him to pieces. But the guy remains confident, while saying that she is a girl who says that the wheels of destiny united by inevitability cannot be defined by common sense. Even if the Haiyan tribe members start at a lower alpha level, if you can find a child from the Haiyan tribe whose running level is S, even if the growth is slow, he can grow. That one over there is Wines, from the sacred tribe. Xia 1, creation, ability to create martial arts as well. She tells him that that child will have the capacity to reach the Omega layer, because the thing we call Hayuan is not only absorbed as energy, but each of the Haiyan that was consumed increases its power within the consumer's body. Although very slowly, he needs to find this child. Teaser, this is the only way to free all tribes from predators. After all, those predators cannot coexist with the tribe of gods and the massacre order given by the king of predators. One of his eyes was gouged out, but he was still confident. Or Omega level Cancun. 11 days later, in the watchtower on Carnivora Island, the guy is observing what that thing is in the sky. Apparently, there are 2 people walking, and they have huge horns, and he soon realizes that it is Lard, and he starts running very fast, shouting, trying to call the general. The guy doesn't understand why there's all this commotion. The guy bets on the ground and says, "Lard is coming back." Damn, his experiments didn't even cure him completely, and that guy is coming back. What is he talking about? They pushed that guy from the cliff with no chance of returning that day, but he's sure he saw that boy coming back there and also brought someone along with him. Damn, he thinks it's Teaser from the Lightning Tribe. Thunder Teaser? How he managed to get to Carnivore Island from the mainland. Since the day the ocean changes, the ocean has been completely covered in poisonous fog. It's impossible for someone like him to get there, traveling from the mainland to the Carnivore Island. And Teaser, that guy is the Thunder Hero. Why did he come to the Carnivore Island, perhaps? It is impossible to climb the cliff without returning. The cliffs are covered in a poisonous solution, so whoever touches it is immediately paralyzed. How could he have gone up? After all, there are several predators there. Not even they can climb up, but he decides to prepare just in case. So, he gathers everyone there and starts saying that Larte refuses to travel through the high-end continent and is about to commit treason by attacking the Carnivore Island. And he starts shouting at everyone, telling them to prepare poisonous solutions and spears and keep them away until noon. They will give him a suitable punishment, a divine punishment to this insolent and ungrateful Hayuan brat. After all, he turned his back on them despite such generosity they showed. After he reached adulthood, he became this monster. Everyone starts howling, shouting that they're going to make him pay for everything he's doing. That carnivorous tribe. The guys are excited, while the two are still walking. As the two approach, the carnivore tribe begins to observe that it really is Larte, but who is there next to him? Thunder begins to say that his cunning was what led to the ruin of the other tribes, just for his own survival. This must be what makes them able to prepare themselves against the dangers that await them. He asks Larte to focus on the problems in front of him and try to solve them alone. Maybe he felt it, that if he looks inside and believes in himself, he will be able to succeed in any type of activity he pursues. He just says he'll try. A completely disgusted guy, he wonders how that fruit son Haiyan dares. Then, he prepares his spear and begins shouting that according to the rules of the Carnivore Island, all traitors must be punished only by instant death. Then, everyone on the Carnivore Island begins to exchange their spears, and the first one launches the tiger spear blow, heading towards the protagonist. When the spear is about to hit the target, he just holds it with one of his hands. The speed of the spear was so strong that smoke came out of his hands. You're crazy. But he, with a very penetrating look, starts to look at the carnivore tribe, and the guy can't believe that he only caught the spear with his hand, and he avoided the part of the spear that was poisoned. He then swings the spear back and prepares to attack again, but this time, now using all the teachings that Teaser passed on to him, and throws the spear back with tremendous speed. Spear passes by the two, and they see nothing. Apparently, he missed on purpose, but his ear was cut off by that completely poisoned spear, and now that guy started to get corroded, and the rocky mountain back there was blown up. What did that guy do? Because he seems to have become very strong in just these 11 days. Larte then begins to use mysterious breathing, and begins to use capture steps, and begins to step on the wind as if they were stairs. The guys start to look at each other in tremendous horror. Is he treading on air? How incredible. But the guy just says it's a magic trick and tells everyone to throw poison spears at him. Everyone there starts to throw several spears towards Larte, 10 spears at once, but he manages to counter them all, using only his hand, still avoiding the poison parts of them, and continues to rise into the air. The guy can't believe that guy can brush aside those poison spears like they were nothing. This is nothing more than a magic trick. He tells everyone to throw more spears, and then they start again. While Larte moves slowly, he does it again, and several spears fall down there. Those carnivorous tribe warriors froze in fear. They are completely terrified. See with its brief ending, seeing Larte pushing away the poisoned spears as if he was swatting away flies, and just like that, Larte stepped into the air and stepped step by step, continuously walking towards him in the air, and climbed up, staring straight into their eyes, climbing the cliff that was considered to be of no return. Damn, the protagonist is nothing more, nothing less than one of the last of the skill-copying race. And look, what does that premonition have to tell us, and who will be the leader of this new work? Now it's time for him to purge all the memories he has inside his head. Combine every weird experience over several generations. Above all, everything that happened within the limits of all the memories he has in his genes, and go beyond space-time, and he will get a final perspective. So he starts to release all the memories in that boy's body, and now he will experience the first memory, and he starts to speak to the protagonist. Follow the whole truth. Reveal the core of all the feelings in his body, the beginning of his memories. Then, suddenly, he remembers that he was carrying a cart, going somewhere. Inside the cart, there was a strange body with eggshell fragments around it. It hadn't been long since it had been broken, and it was still soaked in the fluid that hated him. He heard that the Nature faction were born through incubators. Immediately, the body appeared to be that of a 6-year-old child, and to think that all of this was true. And besides that Larté child, his sensitivity to hypnosis is as high as his performance skills. And he also kept hearing a voice that he misses. One of the people said that there are 3 officers, Larté, Jung, Larté. He is the guy who only calls the vice general asking where he is going late at night. The general gets scared and asks, why is that 15-year-old brat awake? Apparently, he had been working up until this point. A guy comes closer to the wagon and asks who this boy is. Apparently, he's from the Nature faction. He looks a lot like him. Nature, the sacrificial child of the full moon. In that faction of Nature, eggs hatch alone. Who could have laid an egg that size? I just keep thinking about it. After hatching, they stand on 2 legs like a baby servant, and the capabilities are equivalent to a 6-year-old child. Yes, we already know that. Under the orders of the general of the carnivorous faction, hundreds of eggs were hatched, and they were placed in a kind of methane lake in an underground cave that had restricted entrances and exits for everyone. And those unhatched Nature faction eggs, which did not decompose, being submerged in the methane lake, could be hatched only within 4 days, thanks to those specific conditions. That was how Larté hatched and became Nature's child sacrifice to the predators, which happened every 15 years. So basically, every 15 years, they needed a new sacrifice. The guy didn't understand what he should do with that child, but the guy just said he should inform the general, that's all. To think that a child from the Nature faction would go to Carnivore Island alone, that's incredible. While the guy is excited that he now has a little brother and his name is Larté and he has elite genes, even among the other factions of Nature, his potential is latent and it's incredible. But that guy from the Carnivore faction understands the size of the danger. If those guys understood all their senses and their enormous strength, that could be extremely dangerous for everyone. So, there in the general's office, a guy is thinking that it's not long, the 10-year anniversary of the host offering, and they need these people. The punishment is suitable for their sins. He looks at everyone in that room and says they don't need to act hastily. It would be a scratch on their long-standing traditions. And the child that Lauricio discovered will have to be designated to offer foster care and re-education. In the end, think like a slave, an investment. In the Nature faction, thus, he can grow quickly. So those were the memories from the beginning of Larté, and along with his brother. When Larté and Lars first met, even the hardest times were filled with happiness when he had his brother. A time before Lars became a predator's sacrifice, it was quite comforting enough to raise a few tears. That experience was enough to motivate Larté for the rest of his life. That is Larté's strongest and most precious memory, his happiest, the time spent with his brother. While outside, a guy from the Carnivore faction was watching. Those 2 bastards from the Nature faction. They just have to treat them well until the time of the ceremony and nothing else, so they can endlessly exploit those guys until the time of their death. And that's how he thought. However, having 2 of those creatures is extremely dangerous, and it would be very difficult to deal with them, given their incredible strength. The guy just says that they will offer a different egg for sacrifice this time, and it's so he doesn't forget the noble tradition of expressing gratitude to predators every full moon. Larté, poor thing, remembering those memories, starts to cry and begins to say with a trembling voice that his brother was offered to the predators as a mere sacrifice. And it wasn't just him, it was several consecutive generations of the Nature faction. It wasn't just him and his brother, and this was a cruel death sentence every full moon. Those innocent children died in cruel ways. As he climbs the peak of that mountain of no return, he is determined to massacre everyone. Those guys from the Carnivore tribe, they are completely in shock. They can only watch Larté going up, and suddenly he steps with his right foot on the peak of that mountain, exhaling his enormous pressure. The guys can't believe he's going up alone, and everyone starts to walk away, and he starts calling everyone bastards. The Carnivore faction, they will pay for all the sins, all the terrible immoralities repeated throughout the ages. He will be responsible for heavenly punishment, not divine punishment. And he is determined to accept wholeheartedly the responsibility of punishing that tribe of carnivores. The shocked guy starts screaming, saying he's just a brat alone. Can he deal with all those people? No chance. He tells everyone to run together to attack at once, immediately. It's to show that Brat, the maximum power of the carnivore tribe. Then the guys start to attack at once, but suddenly Larte starts to make a whirlwind in the air and attack them all at once, throwing several into the ditch, using only his claws. He cuts several necks there, and also with his legs. Several are thrown from the hill with no return. Now look, by the irony of fate, those who are thrown over the hill with no return are the guys from the carnivore tribe. Larte grabs one of the guy's collars, while punching the guy right in the middle of the chest. The punch is so strong that his hand goes through and he throws the guy away, pushing him and several carnivores down the hill. Those kids who used to bully Larte now just think it's a trick. How can this guy be so strong? Was he always this strong? General Ika thinks the path he is about to take is extremely dangerous. Then they start pouring that liquid, the deadly poison, to escape that Larte with their lives. But they still have that deadly poison bomb that the leaders secretly kept in case of a rebellion like this. In other words, if the intimidating atmosphere gets worse and they completely lose the chance of winning, there will be no choice but to use it, and he thinks now is the time to use it. While Larte is excited, he suddenly sees the barrel of poison being thrown at him again, right in his face. But this time it was a small barrel. While he is cleaning his face full of poison, one of the guys from the carnivore tribe comes at him with a knee right in the face, but Larte manages to defend. While the guy shouts for everyone not to stop attacking, that this is the time for everyone to advance. This is the expected moment for everyone to attack at once and show this guy what a show of skill is. The guys there are now excited, completely cowardly, but ruthless. There is no other way to describe this tribe of carnivores. When those guys are scared, they will tremble with fear and think about running away. And if you show them weakness, they will attack you as if they were hyenas. All at once, a personality of real cunning, but they are still weak. And they go after Larte, saying that the dirty nature of his faction is nothing more than a bastard nature, and start attacking him with various blows, kicks, while shouting that Larte is just biting the hand that has fed him so much over all the years. How dare he try to dishonor the noble superior rank of the carnivore faction. While several kicks are thrown towards Larte, they continue shouting that Larte is going to beg to die, but he won't be able to. Then suddenly, Larte plans in the sky and goes away from them. A guy already calls him the son of the fruit and shouts, saying that he won't be able to get away now. But who said that Larte is trying to run away? Number. He goes at it all at once and destroys several with just one blow. The guys just think this is impossible because he had been poisoned. He was supposed to be completely still. Now they understand. He just lured them closer to the pit so he could throw them all there. From the edge of the cliff, Larte continues kicking several and throwing them all out, so they will all be offered as sacrifices. Now they understand that they have to escape, but unfortunately, it is already too late. The guys start to run away, shouting for everyone to escape from that village. This is the only option they have, but then Larte activates the power of his finger and launches a strong shock towards the boys. That is the power of capture. It takes your hand and hits the ground with a tremendous shock and starts to explode everything. The guys don't understand the size of that power. You're crazy. While Larte says that he is lucky that that day is the day of the full moon, it is the day that he is at his strongest, and the place they go is not to the village, but to the cave, or better said, to the land of predators, to be offered as mere sacrifices at the bottom of the cliff. With no return, that electrical faction were not built to absorb and emit energy like that faction of nature, and they basically consume electrical energy as if it were a battery after a brief recharge. On the island near the carnivore faction, with the help of electric currents, that guy used electric currents to cheer up Lardy, and Tizer, who'd exhausted all his electrical energy when transferring martial arts to him, had to prepare to fight against the predatory host of the carnivore island. Maintaining this depleted condition, and being economical with all his electrical energy, he activated the power saving mode. And that predator host from the carnivore island is something that can control and connect the minds of hundreds of predators at once, a being made of about 100 bodies, whose name is Nathan. Since he needs to take into account all the variables in order to combat it and retain the greatest amount of electrical energy he can consume, thus he cannot be exhausted without energy anymore. He starts to observe and begins to deduce that it is essential to maintain that energy-saving mode for now. While Larte continues to fight with his own strength, he has to be prepared for the final battle with the carnivorous faction with an attack using only his claws like pincers. The guy starts shouting that he was still chosen. Compared to the others from the nature faction, who were chosen as a sacrifice of the natural moon as fuel, this guy had the luxury of being favored with recovery food. He had everything necessary to be able to grow strong. Since it didn't work out, the guys start trying to use speech to try to beat the protagonist. They start telling the protagonist to think a little about why, unlike the other continents, the carnivore island is completely stabilized. And he stabbed them after his lucky day, and they're only doing it because of traditions. After all, those traditions that have kept the carnivore islands completely stabilized for all these years. Larte remains impassive and starts to grind his teeth. He starts to tell them that if it wasn't enough to lock them in pigsties and turn them into slaves, but then when they turned 15, they took them to death. And look, even their horns were turned into liquor. So, taking a child from the nature faction, a newborn without sin, who couldn't even walk properly, and sacrificing everyone in such a cruel way, is this what they call an admirable tradition? He starts to vent his enormous pressure on everyone. He starts to shout, "Is this tradition?" He then shows his claws and calls everyone there bastards and starts growling. The guys have no idea what he's capable of doing, and they have no idea what kind of attack is about to happen, but they think there's no need to put themselves in danger like that, as they now observe a kind of very strong light shining brightly in the sky. What is that? Then suddenly that light starts to fall, and there he is, Larte. He breaks the stones of that hill at once. While the guys think that attack is too slow, that is the mere retarded nature faction, it seems that he has run out of power. They think they can isolate him with this thing. The guy then touches that power, and his hand is completely repelled. He doesn't understand what kind of power this is, but they still think that he continued to exhaust all his strength, and apparently he wants to rest, since there is also a limit to internal energy, so naturally this bastard is running out. The only thing they can do is wait. When he is out of strength is when they will attack, and they will definitely tear him to pieces. One of the guys tells them to look beyond this thing that keeps them blocked. That guy is getting weaker, and time is on their side. But Larte quickly closes his hands, channeling all the capture power. He then uses the tiger anchoring trigger, and just like that, the hill begins to collapse, and everything begins to vibrate. Now those guys understood that that was just part of the power. The ground started to break, and those horrible creatures, the carnivores, started to fall, and now they will become food for the predators. The guys start to scream a lot that they don't want to die there, but Larte has no mercy and just watches everyone falling there. His teacher told him to control his anger and combine the energy in a single movement so he can finish it and incorporate the techniques he learned and apply them with potential that exceeds all expectations. Then it quickly starts to break free from power-saving mode, while Larte remains panting, watching everyone there continue to fall, some even trying to catch themselves, and he observes several bodies of carnivores there, while he observes General Aroke, and the general is there. Then the two set off, walking through the mountains. The guy just thinks Larte's growth is supernatural, and the carnivore's energy reserves are completely strange. He knows that Roke is a cruel man from what he heard from Larte. He was quite worried that it could completely burn him down until he destroyed him, but then they arrive at a door at the entrance of the building. While Tizer tells Larte to go to the village, suddenly, Tizer tells Larte to stop and quickly take to the air, and they then begin to float, while Larte doesn't understand what Tizer is talking about. What is happening? But Tizer only says that that place is completely filled with black gas, a gas produced from concentrated black ore. If that's all it can discover the entire carnivore island and the surrounding islands in the sea in an instant. Apparently those guys were able to resist the predators by spreading this black ore gas over them. However, that gas is not fatal to predators, unlike Garth gas. So this means that the spraying of that gas is intended to kill Garth. In other words, it is only the two of them who will be exposed to that gas, but those carnivore faction soldiers also on the cliff of no return will also die from exposure. That Roke general was waiting for the outcome of the fight at the cliff of no return so he could show his claws. He was probably waiting and planning to sacrifice the soldiers of the carnivorous faction along with them. But apparently the village is very quiet, and the number of that carnivorous faction left in the village was not small. So what are they doing? Are they hiding somewhere away from the gas? A kind of bunker? Can an underground bunker exist? So he just needs to find the entrance that place of great sacrifice enough to hide a lot of people, and that gas is just increasing very quickly. And looking at that ladder, it will last at least 4 days. That guy starts saying that there is a limit to the use of their powers to remain in the air, since their energy will be constantly being consumed. Before that, they must enter the bunker. Then they start running, trying to find the locked entrance to the bunker. After all, Tizer will be able to open it, using his electric currents taking control of at least the outside. Suddenly, Larte stops and observes a being curled up on a mountain alone, completely isolated and exhausted, screaming for help. He then quickly goes to pick up that boy and picks him up, and starts to leave quickly. But suddenly he looks at that boy's feet, which are completely corroded, and starts shouting the name of Roke, the evil general who caused them all this suffering. That's it. That's all for today. I hope you liked it. The work is very top-notch, completely different from what I've been bringing these days. And our Larte. I couldn't understand Larte's personality, but he's increasingly changing more and more about Tizer and the rest of his tribe. I want to know more. If you also want to know more, the continuation and the outcome of this story, comment here and we'll get the rest. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.